Good evening, Dhamma friends, and those who join with us from Sri Lanka and elsewhere via a different time zone. I would like to greet you as well with wholesome blessings in mind. It's a great honor and privilege to be in this online Sutta study class to discuss the Dhamma for the benefit of all of us. So let me first of all welcome you to this online Sutta study class. And I wish may this effort of all of us help each other to share the Dhamma, to investigate the Dhamma, to follow the Buddha's teaching in the name of the noble training. And may this help us to sustain on the noble training in this very life. With that wholesome thought, we are going to begin Sutta studies today after, I think, 3 months, no, 2.5 months, type of vacation. I remember the last Sutta study class was in February, and I thought of starting the Sutta studies as soon as I returned to Canada, but different things at the temple made me to postpone the class for several weeks. So today I managed to get it back to you, and I'm so happy that you are here with wholesome thought in mind. During the period I was in Sri Lanka and in India, we were able to discuss the Dhamma in a way for us to get into our action, kusala action in places where we visited. Especially when I visited in India, I recalled some of the suttas we discussed with names and various Dhamma facts, and there I remembered you as well. Especially the Jetonarama, where the Buddha delivered many Dhamma discourses, and in Rajgir, Gijjakuta, Veluvanarama, and also Vaishali, the Visala, Mahanura in our terms, and then also the place where the Buddha delivered the Satipatthana discourse. When I visited those places, it made me so happy that I, with people, discuss the Dhamma, where the Buddha delivered these wonderful pieces of Dhamma for the first time for bhikkhus and bhikkhunis and lay people. So it was a great moment for all of us. I kept you in mind in these places while visiting, and I here to transfer merits with you from this journey, and that is because of our Kalyana Mitra quality. So I really like to share these good memories with you. I was able to do some Sutta discussion in the form of Dhamma discussion in Sri Lanka with some people, but one of our friends who joined here was not able to participate. Unfortunately, it is because of my lack of communication. Anyway, I'm really happy about you because you people have that quality to discuss the deep Dhamma based on suttas and digest them well. We do not find many people in Sri Lanka to do that kind of thing, but handful of people are there always from different places, and I'm happy that you still can hang on to deep Dhamma discussion while you are traveling. So that is another thing I did while many programs were being conducted. So after that, we are here to begin the Sutta studies. The Sutta I selected to begin our series of Sutta study classes is really important and very famous, very nice discourse. As you read the email and the flyer, it is Madhupindika Sutta. By its name, you understand how tasty and wonderful that this discourse is. The discourse on the honey ball, it has different translation also in the canon, especially with translation, but it's a kind of very important discourse to understand how and which way the mind is created and which way the mind is cleansed from impurities. So it is the discourse in Majjhima Nikaya. The sutta number is 18. And to begin the sutta study from now on, let's pay our great homage to the Buddha by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times in Pali and also in English. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Madhupindika Sutta is recorded in a very nice section of the Majjhima Nikaya. It is in the first book. There are 3 books in Majjhima Nikaya. This sutta is from the first book, and first book is also categorized into 5. In one section, there are 10 suttas. This Madhupindika Sutta is from the second section, and they are all very nice suttas with similes and analogies. So this Madhupindika Sutta, if I give you an overview, it is delivered by the Buddha when he was in Kapilavastu, where the Buddha was born and lived up to certain period of time as a layperson, but later on he went there and a monastery was also built by the father and also relatives, and Nigrodharama is one of the famous monasteries at the time, and the Buddha lived there for some time when this discourse was delivered. According to the introduction, you see that the Buddha went on Pindapata on one day when he was in Nigrodharama, and he, right after the Pindapata, went to Mahavana. It's called the Great Forest near Kapilavastu, where usually mendicants and people who wants to stay calm and peaceful go there, and the Buddha also went there for his daily living. Sat down under a bilwa tree for his rest. So that is what the sutta says. It's a usual introduction. Like many suttas, we have what exactly Buddha did when or before the suttas are delivered. So it's there is no much information in it we need to know. But if you can remember, the Madhupindika Sutta is delivered in Kapilavastu, where the Buddha was in Mahavana or Great Forest, to somebody like this name and so on. That would be helpful for your nice record. Then Dandapani, he was a Sakyan who was also walking for exercise, came through that Bilwa tree where the Buddha sat under for daily rest, and he asked some questions, of course not much, but 2 questions in one line, and that is the seed for this sutta. After the question simply is, what does the Gautama say or explain? What does the Gautama, as a recluse, teach to bhikkhus and bhikkhunis and lay followers, in short, for everybody? Basically, Dandapani asks, the question is, what are you teaching for people? Dandapani is a character to know because simply he was not respecting the Buddha. The Dandapani name for him is because of the stick he was taking always with him. When he goes somewhere, he used that stick. And in the commentary it says it's not a just stick, it's made by copper and shine very much. And from young age he was he was using that stick wherever he goes. That is why this name came to him, Dandapani. At this moment, Dandapani, being in front of the Buddha, asked this question, having that stick in his one hand and keeping the other hand on it. And it is said in the commentary that he was putting his cheek on the right or left hand on top of the stick. So it's not a respectful way to meet the Buddha or any religious leader at the time, because people were respecting any religious leader in Indian society in 6th century BC. But Dandapani was disrespectful for the Buddha. The reason is given in the commentary that Dandapani was a bhikkhu before, but he was ordained by Venerable Devadatta. So we know the fact that any bhikkhu under Venerable Devadatta was against Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Moggallana and other monks who were in the top of the order, along with the Buddha, because of the influence of Venerable Devadatta. This person disrobed and came to this name Dandapani. Of course, it is said that he was Dandapani even before becoming a monk, but he took the stick again after disrobing and worked against the Buddha. Being a relative, being a countryman, he didn't do anything, any useful things for the sasana. So that is what the commentary says. Here it is proved when he asked the question and keeping that type of behavior. So the question again, what does Venerable Gautama teach for people? He should have known this into a certain extent, because from our knowledge we can feel that he listened to some Dhamma. He would be able to say something, but this question was not asked with respect, and the intention was not there for him to listen to Dhamma. Anyway, the Buddha's answer is so nice, and it brought up a lot of insight. So the Buddha said, also the very word friend, sometime this word is used many in the Sangha and Sangha order, especially with bhikkhus. When you talk to same age monk or nun, you call also Susila, also so and so. We can see that in the discourses. Venerable Sariputta called also for Venerable Sariputta, and Venerable Sariputta, when he talks, use this word for Venerable Moggallana. So it's a word for friend. This is the Buddha's answer. I teach, or I say, in such a way so as not to quarrel with anyone in this world, with its gods, its maras, its brahmas, this generation with its recluse and brahmin, its rulers and people. I teach something that is not to quarrel, or it doesn't lead anyone to quarrel. And whatever I teach, it tend to detach from sensual pleasures and free from doubt, and having cut off worry, free from craving for any kinds of existence. This is what I teach for this world. So the Buddha's simple answer is, I teach people or anyone to be away from quarrel, sensual pleasures, doubt, and free from worry. And whatever I teach helps people to be away from any kinds of existence. That is what. But when this was spoken, Dandapani, the Sakya, shook his head, wagged his tongue, and raised his eyebrows until there were three furrows in his brow, and then leaning on his stick left. It shows that Dandapani did not have any clue of what the Buddha said. It should be because he disliked the order, he disliked the Buddha. It means he disliked the Dharma also. How could he understand the meaning of what the Buddha said in details? So for us, we can understand what the Buddha said because we are looking forward to complete our training with Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, so that we feel the Buddha's teaching is for ending of quarrel, fighting, kalaha vivada, and ending of sensual pleasures, kama, tanha, and then ending of all kinds of unwholesome states, and we need to end bhava. So the Buddha's intention of teaching Dharma to the world is to show the path for these kind of experiences. But Dandapani did not listen to it carefully. His intention was not to get the Dhamma, just to disturb the Buddha in a way. Then the Buddha went back to the Nigrodharama monastery in the evening time after that resting, and he himself told the bhikkhus that I met Dandapani while I was in Mahavana under the tree, that particular tree, and he asked this question like in this way, and I answered this question in this way, but Dandapani did not get anything except he show off his tongue, and he make some awkward facial expression, and he left. This was the thing the Buddha said to group of monks over there at the Nigrodharama monastery. When this was said, unknown monk, a certain monk said that, what exactly, Bhante, do you teach? So now the conversation is serious, not like between the Buddha and Dandapani. The Buddha and the bhikkhus were heading towards a very nice and profitable discussion. This Bhante in the assembly asked this question with so much faith and also with the intention of knowing what exactly Buddha said. Isn't this showing that this bhikkhu doesn't know what the Buddha says? No. Maybe he wanted to know what the Buddha said in short. We also know this. We also want to know this. Sometimes people ask what kind of teachings the Buddha said. Giving a short answer is difficult because the Buddha's teaching is so vast and deep, profound, and sometimes it's unable to take one answer. So that bhikkhus at the time wanted to get that kind of clarification from the Buddha in order to answer for somebody, in order for them to keep it in mind for their training, or maybe another reason. So anyway, this bhikkhu asked the question, and the answer is the same as to Dandapani, not to quarrel with anyone in this world. It means that when we practice the Buddha's teaching, we have no quarrels with humans and no any problem with any other beings as well. And then it is for releasing ourselves from sensual pleasures, doubts, and cutting off of worry, dukkha, and cutting off of craving for any existence. So having said this, Buddha left. He didn't explain much about anything in the statement. He left. This shows that sometimes Buddha wanted bhikkhus to think about Dharma on their own, because the whole training, even for us, is to investigate, explore. Myself as a teacher, and there are very nice individuals who can teach here. When they teach also, they try to point out some point of Dharma and for listeners to investigate. When I listen to my teachers and teachers from different background, I listen just to get information for my investigation. So Dharma for us is a tool to investigate, to explore, to get the meaning and apply it in our life. So the Buddha let bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, sometimes lay followers, to dig into life. According to Vammika Sutta, the very person dig into the anthill, and he found different objects. It's a simile. Likewise, when we apply the Dhamma, when we know the Dhamma, we are going to investigate the mind and find the gems like wonderful qualities in the mind. With the development of them, we achieve nirvana. So Buddha wanted something like that from bhikkhus, so that in some occasion he left, leaving bhikkhus to think about. So there we see the same thing happen. Then Venerable, I just want to add here something. Let me get the sutta. Yes, this bhikkhu asked something else as well, according to this sutta. Pante, do perception no more lie latent in the Blessed One, the Brahmin who abides detached from sensual pleasure? Yes, that was said already. Let me get the translation. Yes. So, Buddha added this, because as regards the source from which proliferation of conception and perception assail a person, if one were to find nothing there to delight in, nothing there to welcome, nothing there to cling to, this is the end of the latent tendency of lust, the latent tendency of aversion, the latent tendency of views, doubts, conceit, and desire for existence, and at last ignorance. The Buddha said that if one does not let his mind proliferate or wander, in short, on what we see, what we hear, what we sense, what we cognize, and so on, he is going to stop creating of anusaya, underlying tendencies. There are 7 in numbers. As I said, raganusaya, the latent tendency of lust, and then aversion, patiga, and then views, ditti, doubts, vichikiccha, conceit, mana, desire for existence, bhavaraganusaya, and ignorance, avijjanusaya. So if one do not proliferate, or if one does not let his mind wander on sensory experiences and create some sort of annamayanas, there you do not develop any underlying tendency. We can discuss this in details. This is my short explanation. The ending, this is the ending of the taking up of the rod and the sword, quarrel, dispute, and slandering and lying and everything. When you put the end to the underlying tendencies as mentioned here by way of sensory discipline, you are going to stop quarreling, fighting, and all kinds of problem, as the Buddha said. No doubts, no sensual pleasures, no worry, no any desire for existence hereafter, because you have put an end to the fuel of all these problems. So having said this, Buddha left the place and the Sangha was left alone. And the nice thing happened after that, according to the discourse. Right after the Buddha's leaving, the monks discussed that who could explain the Buddha's statement in details. Perhaps the Buddha thought that there would be a monk like Venerable Kaccayana could explain the short but very important message of the Dhamma in details, so that the bhikkhus knows, and there are such incidents happen in the entire life of the Buddha. So the monks thought that when Venerable Kaccayana is the suitable monk to go and get the full meaning of this statement, and they went there. The reason why Venerable Kaccayana was selected, because he was one of the arahants who attained to enlightenment with skills, like other great disciples, and he was famous among the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis and even lay followers, that he could explain a short, very succinct message of the Buddha in details with some additional information, so that everybody agreed to go to Venerable Kaccayana to get the full meaning of this statement. I'm not going to explain details of Venerable Kaccayana, and it's something else, because a lot of information are there. Venerable Kaccayana, simply, as I said, praised by the Buddha for wise explanation, and he was a very nice monk. And this monk went to the Venerable Mahakaccayana and said the whole story happened between them and the Buddha. Then the Venerable Kaccayana humbly said that, why didn't you ask further questions from the Buddha? You have come to me to get the meaning. It's just like keeping the best teacher ever in the world aside, you come to someone who doesn't know anything. That sort of humble qualities are there from Venerable Kaccayana's conversation. Anyway, the group of monks were able to impress Venerable Kaccayana to teach, and finally he is going to teach the Dharma based on the Buddha statement. So we go to there is in the Sutta, there is a parable also. In that parable, hardwood parable, Venerable Kaccayana was trying to compare his understanding about the Dharma and the Buddha as well. Venerable Kaccayana was an Arahant, but that is how they respect the Buddha. That is how they put the Buddha in top place of esteem. However, when Venerable Kaccayana agreed to explain the Dharma there. In that case, listen, Venerable monks, and pay close attention. I'm going to speak. That's how Venerable Kaccayana started the sermon. So far, we have not been discussed any deep Dhamma in the discourse. We so far came to the introduction. Through the introduction, now actually we are going to do that. As said, the question is how one become, pollute himself, and which way the mind gets impurities. And we have a couple of words here that is not understood by many scholars, but I don't think we don't have that problem. We do not have that problem in understanding prapancha sanya sanka, because it's called mental proliferation, and it's called mental wandering on whatever we see, hear, sense and cognize. And it is being cleared by the Buddha, by the Venerable Mahakaccayana first, and also the Buddha and other discourses. Prapancha is a word in all religion in Indian subcontinent, and it is being used for something impure in the mind. When the mind is not controlled, it goes to lust, it goes to aversion, it goes to ignorance. In other words, when the mind is not governed by wisdom, it is always with something unwholesome. And that mind is always looking for something. And when the mind is going from one object to another without any control, it's called samudacharanti. Its mind is traveling, mind is wandering. And on what mind is wandering? On unwholesome state. As a result, the greed, hatred, and delusion, the three root causes of suffering, are being developed. When they are nourished and developed, the underlying tendencies simultaneously develop. In Buddhism, we talk about 7 types of underlying tendencies, and they are being developed highly, profoundly, and strongly, so that we would be always in suffering, because we create the sources for suffering. We create the food for suffering by doing this way. So that is what we call prapancha sanya sanka samudaya charanti, but it is a very few lines for scholars to bring a lot of discussion. I'm not saying that they are unimportant, they are important, but for someone who wants to really understand what it means, in short, in simple language, it is talking about how mind gets polluted. So the Buddha was the Venerable Kaccayana first in the discourse, and the Buddha confirmed it. Both of them were able to show us how mind arises dependently with causes and condition. And when the mind is understood by the individual of its origin, he has the ability to clean it with causes and conditions. So the simple technique the Buddha admire here for cleansing the mind is Indriya Sangvara, because Indriya Asangvara is being taught. If I tell here the way the mind is created, Chakkuncha Paticca Rupecha Upajjati Chakku Vinyanan Tinnan Sangati Passo Passapaccha Vedana Yang Vedeti Tang Sanjanati Yang Sanjana Tang Vitakketi, and so on. So this shows how Paticcasamuppada is worked in making the mind, in creation of mind. And Paticcasamuppada positively add here when the mind is not, mind is when the mind is understood and stopping this, a wrong view. Actually, wrong view is made here for anyone to create prapancha sanya sanka. So Venerable Mahakaccayana was starting explaining this in a beautiful way right after the Buddha's statement. I'm going to go there now and let you discuss that. So this is how mental proliferation as an happen as an unconscious process. This is the first one, I-based proliferation, prapancha. Venerable Kaccayana started speaking about it. Also, dependent on the I and form, I consciousness arises. The same thing I explained in Pali few seconds ago. The meeting of the three is called contact. Tinnan Sangati Passo. With contact as condition, there is feeling. Passa Paccha Vedana in that particular formula in Paticcasamuppada. What one feels, one perceives. Yang Vedeti Tang Sanjanati. What one perceives what one thinks about. So Yang Sanjanati Tang Vitakketi. So now it's very clear statement, and for me, when I hear this, when somebody read this, I feel how it happened from my experience. And then what one thinks about, one mentally proliferate. So when the sensory experience happen, it's called phassa, sensory contact. And then this is called actually meeting of these three, the sense and the sensory object and the consciousness. Meeting of these three is called contact. And wherever this happen, whenever this happen, related to eyes, ears, the nose, tongue, body, and mind, it means contact is arisen. There you have feeling, and then you have recognizing of that feeling as pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral with some addition. So right after feeling, there is perception, sanya or sanjanana, the very action of sanjanana, sanya is sanjanana. And then you have that thinking, initial thinking is starting. And when you let that thinking go over and over, you make proliferation, which means you create those, fuel or necessary conditions for lobha, dosa, moha, or any anusaya. So it is said here, from that as source, proliferation of conception and perception assail a person regarding past, future, and present form cognizable through the eye. So actually, suppose a person is accusing somebody with using bad words. This is an example. In this example, the person who is accusing with bad words to another is happened due to this. Perhaps he saw the person A is accusing to B, and the person A sees the person B is doing something not nice for person A. So that person A is person A saw this person B doing that, and now he think feeling is there, perception is there, consciousness and contact were there earlier before feeling and perception. Now he create a lot of things in his mind. It's called proliferation. Because of this mental proliferation geared by anger, wrong view, and so forth, he is creating dukkha. So from any incident, whether it is negative or positive, we can understand this process. In other words, this process, first we learn it, and we can, keeping that process in mind, we can see the current incident also with the light of this process. So with regard to ear-based proliferation, the same thing is discussed. When depending on the ear and sound, ear consciousness arises, and then the same thing going on and on. And when we go to the nose-based proliferation, it said depending on the ear and sound, ear consciousness arises. Likewise, nose-based, tongue-based, and mind-based proliferations are there. They are being discussed in a simple way and the same way, so that we see how mental proliferation or prapancha is being created through senses. Discerning mental proliferation or understanding mental proliferation is also happen like this. Indeed, also, when there is the eye form and ear consciousness, manifestation of contact can be discerned. So this is the very important thing. I suppose this is very subtle and cannot be understood by just mere talking, just mere presentation, but we have to look into our mind with deep concentration. Then we can see how subtle changes like this happen. In other words, when the senses take information, respective information, and how consciousness arises and how pastor is going to be a full-fledged unit of the mind making, they are invisible for our eyes, even for the mind, unless it is developed, because it happens so fast. So that I'm not saying that one is unable to see, but it is very difficult. However, we know the process of how things happen. So here Venerable Kachana explained this in details, very in a nice way. Indeed, also, when there is the eye, form, and ear consciousness, a manifestation of contact can be discerned. It is possible for this to occur, or possible to know this, when there is the manifestation of contact, a manifestation of feeling can be discerned. I would tell this to you in short form. When eyes meet form or visible objects, eye consciousness arises, and meeting of these three shows us contact, a rise of contact. And when there is contact, we can discern, we can understand that feeling arises. We can understand that sanya or perception is also arising with feeling. And when perception is there for feeling, it means we perceive feeling, we understand feeling. That's called perception. And then there is thinking, where right after thinking, on thinking, we create many stories. In Dhammapada, there is a very nice story of, it is called Bhagini Sangharakkhita. I think you heard about this story before. How our mind goes to different conclusions, stories, places, without thinking, intentional thinking. The Bhagini Sangharakkhita was a young monk, and his uncle was a senior monk in the monastery. So he was getting instruction from the great monk Sangharakkhita, but he did not experience any development of his meditation. Instead, he was feeling bad about his mental training as a monk, and also monkhood was not a pleasant thing for him. One day, he was sitting in front of the teacher Sangharakkhita and listen to some instruction. In the meantime, his mind was going to something else. He thought that while listening, physically he was listening to the teacher, but mentally his mind was proliferating, means creating stories. He thought that this monkhood is not suitable for me. Nothing happened to me for a long time in this monkhood. So if I wait here further, same thing happened to me. So that I disrobe from here and go to my previous home, and I can buy a cow and support the family, and then I get married and have children, and one child, and second child, and so on. So it's a long story. It's a very nice story. And then he thought that mentally he is thinking that I come to see my former teacher, my uncle, long time with my wife and also two children. And on the way to the monastery, one of his children fell down from wife's hand. So then he was driving the bullock cart and hit the wife because of that misdeed. This happened mentally. He was creating stories. I think we also experience this sometime when we drive long way. We think of where about Sri Lankan trip and trip to somewhere else. We would be driving, but our mind is somewhere else. That is called mental proliferation, creating stories after stories based on whatever input you take through senses. So this is what mental proliferation. Here, Venerable Kachana is asking the bhikkhus and all of us to discern that how you know how things happen from the very beginning: sensory object, senses, consciousness, contact, feeling, and then the perception, then thinking, and the proliferation. So when we understand these single factors as it is, that is the way to stop mental proliferation. It is something possible according to Venerable Mahakachan. With regard to I and the object for the I and consciousness and so on, you discern each and every step so that you can stop mental proliferation. Having explained this teaching, Venerable Kachan come to a state. Indeed, also, when there is no I, no form, no I consciousness, it is not possible. It is not possible to discern that the manifestation of contact. Simply, when there is no sensory impinge or sensory contact, there is no contact. In other words, when I doesn't get a particular object, how could I consciousness arise? And then how could we pinpoint, contact, arising of contact, arising of feeling, arising of perception and thinking, and no mental proliferation. So basically, Venerable Kachan is showing us how suffering arises and how suffering is being stopped in these long analysis. So ending of the root of existence is happening when we do not provide such fuel for mental proliferation. Let me get down to the discourse. Also, when the Blessed One rose from his seat, now Venerable Kachan finished his explanation. When the Buddha ended his statement and left his seat without explaining, if you asked him a question, this is, according to my understanding, this is the way he could explain. And if you have any doubt about what I say, please go to the Buddha and get more clarification. And if something wrong here, he would explain the right thing. Then the bhikkhus left Venerable Kachan and went to the Buddha immediately and explained A to Z of the conversation between themselves and Venerable Kachan. And Sutta shows us that the Buddha told this group of bhikkhus that if I were there, or if I were to explain the statement, I would do the same way. And Venerable Kachan was such a wonderful monk. He was a very erudite monk. He is a very erudite monk, and he could explain things very nice way, explaining the Tathagata's teaching. And there, Venerable Ananda was there, and he came to say something about the Buddha's approval of this Venerable Kachan's Dhamma explanation. And he said there, when this was, he said there, Bhante, just as a person exhausted by hunger and weakened were to come upon a honey ball. Suppose there is a person who is hungry. He didn't eat anything at all for several days, and if he found a honey ball, actually it is a kind of ball with made by rice flour with honey, and he might taste that honey, that ball with honey a lot, because he was hungry. He didn't eat anything at all for several days, and that ball made by rice flour and honey will be eaten with so much eager and interest. So this even so Bante, any able-minded bhikkhus, whatever, wherever he might examine with wisdom the meaning of this Dhamma discourse, he would find satisfaction and confidence of mind. Likewise, Bante, the one who is really tasting Dharma would find this explanation of Dhamma as explained by Venerable Kaccayana and later the Buddha, and he will find the taste of the Dhamma like the honey for that particular person who is hungry. Therefore, Venerable Sir, by which name, by which title, we need to keep this Dhamma sermon in mind. Then the Buddha said, since you said this is very tasty, very elegant and very nice, so keep in mind that this discourse as the honey bowl discourse, Madhupindika. So that is the sutta simply. I gave you an overview. Actually, it took more than 45 minutes to give overview. Anyway, this is a wonderful discourse and it's nicely elaborated. Now we come to discussion, and anything come out of discussion could be taken for a nice discussion even after today, so that don't worry about the time. What do you exactly think about this? When many monks find difficulty in explaining this sutta with that particular statement, Paprancha Sanya Sanka, I don't find that difficulty because it is cleared by the Buddha in many discourses. Prapancha Sanya Sanka means you create, defilements in your mind because of ignorance, because of not knowing what exactly your mind creates, and then let it govern your mind. So then you create, you live in the conventional truth definitely, and you attach to things, you fight with things. As a result, internally, what happened? All kinds of greed, hatred, and delusion, anusaya, and asava, they are being developed in a fast and speedy way. So I think this is such a wonderful discourse, and explanation are very clear and up to the point. So let's discuss it. We have around 20 minutes. I would appreciate your question and concern. I can see that Dr. Pial has raised his hand. Yeah, we go to Dr. Pial first, and all of you can have the opportunity for a discussion.
Bante, I think this is a very important and critical sutra of the how to map up our cognitive flows when we perceive something in the world. So the eye conscious contact, what we from contact you come feeling, what we feel, we perceive, we think about, and the prapanya starts. So proliferation starts. So this is happening pretty much all the time, unless, as you say, without our sensory restraints. So I really mapped this out and wrote a paper. I just shared the link for everyone. If anybody wanted, there's a diagram how it all comes together. But anybody wants the free PDF, I can send it. I think I've shared it with you some time ago. So it's all mapped out there. The diagram shows how these things happen, how we proliferate, and how through proliferation we cling. When we proliferate, we cling. So this, in other words, Buddha says this path is for not one who proliferates, one who does not proliferate. So it's a serious thing to contemplate. This is the missing link of the everything which come together, like which I found when I was analyzing the cognitive pathways of perception. So this is very nicely explained, and there is very clear how we cling and how we proliferate and how we cling, and through clinging we suffer. So my question is now, when with the when we talk about Bahya Daruchira Mahamalankaputra Sutta, and there is this brief statement, say, when you see, you only see. When you hear, you only hear. That is ditte dittamatang sute sutamatang and so on. So does this mean you're at this stage the person is entered jhana and he's quite equanimous, like at this stage, the fourth jhana, and he's coming out of fourth jhana, and he's prepared to take the world with equanimity. And that stage, when you hear, you only hear. You say somebody tell something or scold you or say a good thing or whatever thing, you hear, and it's the sound that arises and passing away. Just you only hear. So does it mean you stay at the contact without going into proliferation? For example, even if you feel it's pleasant or unpleasant, your mind is equanimous at that stage because of coming out of the jhana, the fourth jhana, or your the spilling of the jhana to regular day activities too. So it stays there. So I think the meaning of when you hear, you only hear. When you see, you only see. I think it stays at the stage of contact or slightly beyond that, but we cannot get through further in, like eye consciousness, those things, ear consciousness start. It's a process, right? You cannot stop it. You can see it, but the contact and beyond, you can at least be mindful. Say, for example, Satipatthana, we talks about the feeling arising and passing away. So there is a anupassana we can do about the feeling. So chittanupassana we can do, even the thoughts we can do. So, but not anymore. Contact you cannot anupassana. So does it mean that that when you hear, you only hear is at that stage we stay there, and a person who has developed the mind?
Yeah, it's a very deep question, and a question which need a very lengthy answer, but I know what you mean. I think, as you said, very clear. It's very clear that nobody is able to stop or investigate the first couple of steps of the process, because eye meets and ear meets their respective objects, and consciousness arises and it leads to contact. It happened at
automatic,
once,
very fast.
very fast. However, as you said, past contact and the feeling right after, and mental understanding, what you call perception, there are something to consider actually, because in my understanding, the Buddha asks us to be mindful, practice mindfulness and samadhi and right effort to tackle this process in a positive way from this place, I think. Because if you have type of mindfulness, awareness on what is going in mind and how mind works, your skills are developed to a certain extent to understand contact, maybe in some part of contact, but particularly feeling, because when you have pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, and both these feeling, neutral feeling is something not that visible, like
Yes.
pleasant feeling and unpleasant feeling.
Yeah.
But you have a great chance of understanding pleasant feeling and unpleasant feeling, so that you can make changes over there. So when you understand pleasant feeling and unpleasant feeling, technically you have addressed some sort of perception, sanya also, because the relationship between perception and feeling are inseparable. They are rising
When
together.
you feel, we perceive.
Yeah, for me, in my experience, it's a very safe place. It's a place in the order for us to catch the problem from the very nice point. And if we have developed awareness and wisdom and perseverance, we can stop the problem there into a certain extent, because the meaning of seeing the feeling and perception means you see the danger of enjoying them, because
Yeah.
you have to have some sort of wisdom that if I let this happen, I would experience suffering, I would experience dukkha, I would experience some other dukkhas related to the dukkha I experienced first, so that you see the proliferation is started, and then the suffering going on. So with that understanding, you of course investigate that particular uh, in the middle feeling, but of course contact as well as perception, so that you have a great. I don't think many people can do it unless you have
I think you need a strong
developed.
samadhi for this.
That's right. That's right.
And once the samadhi and equanimity, like maybe develop that, and it's
Yeah.
much easier to then mentally go into like insight, contemplate is much clearer what's happening
clearer.
at that stage of the mind. And that's why maybe Buddha said when the Sabbasa Sutra, I tell this sutra for one who sees and one who don't see. So in other
Yeah.
words, he qualified a person who can see this the phenomena, mental phenomena happening in your own mind. I mean, it doesn't apply to anyone else. It applies to you, right? It's happening in your and how we create this proliferation, feeling, and thoughts of craving. I mean, with the proliferation comes craving, because we proliferate. So, for example, say I like my rose garden, right? So I proliferate. Oh, I want this rose. I want that one. So I'm keep proliferating and develop craving towards that particular object I want. And that's where the proliferation, the craving, and the desire starts, right? And then we cling to that. And the suffering, okay, I don't get the rose I want, and or there's a bugs come and eat the rose, and I'm suffering because of the clinging to that particular object, right?
Yeah. Very good, very good. Yes. Person like Daruchirya or similar monks at the time, and also lay people, had that essence in their mind before the Buddha's encounter. That's why the Buddha actually gave that kind of short
They've
sermon.
already been practicing the meditation for a long time, so I'm sure they have achieved jhana. Even Mahamalakaputta probably did. So it's easier for them to grasp that teaching. For us, if you try without having that experience, samatha, I think it's a bit tough to analyze as brief statement for people like at least people like a person like me, So
no, actually, people who have no background development, I mean, people who do not have enough exercise on the Dhamma would tell this as a theory, as a very nice statement. People can develop shraddha on that. Into a certain extent. They are like thinking that there were monks and lay people who did that with short advice and so on. But nothing happened in us. We would proliferate over that statement as well.
Because Saddhanusari comes because of Saddha about this, the I consciousness, and there is a process that's a Saddhanusari. But the Dhammanusari sees it happening. Like so I think there's a distinction. I think when in the Sutra text they talk about Saddhanusari, Dhammanusari, difference is the Saddhanusari has a Saddha, the faith on this. But the Dhammanusari, so these are all precursors for Sotapanna. They are on their path to Sotapanna. They're not Sotapanna yet.
That's true.
So sorry, I'm taking too much time. Maybe
no, it's fine. It's fine. Nobody has raised their hand, and so that we can. People are listening to us. So
okay.
Yeah.
So the model I based on this sutra, mainly this sutra was a skeleton. If anybody wants, I can forward it to you. Anybody wants the text, the PDF, I'm happy to share, because you online you have to buy whatever the journal sells it for 40 bucks or whatever. So I can provide if anybody is interested in reading, certainly can. Okay.
So whoever is able to read long, very analytical, scholarly articles on this aspect, please share your email address.
It's all based on the sutra text. Yes.
Yeah, and then Dr. Pial will send it to you personally. It's when Dr. Pial posted it on the chatting box, I went into the page and show it to you, share it here. So if you want to read it fully, you can send your email address here. Thank you for your contribution for the discussion, and also very nice article, very academic article with 3 more people, I think, with your daughter also.
She's going to
yes,
review the paper. Just
yeah. So Vimal has raised his hand. You can unmute and talk.
Bhante, I believe this ditte dittamattang can be achieved when tinnang sangati passu does not happen. Is it right? I think the point of origin for the Paticca is from the perception.
So you say that ditte dittamattang and sute sutamattang and the other 2 are possible with Tinnan Sangati Passo. Is that right?
Unless Tinnan Sangati Passo happens, the continuation of the process of Paticca will not take place.
That's true. Unless these 3 things come together, there is no process. And from any unit, we can say that suppose it has been discussed in Mahamalunkyaputta Sutta and other suttas like in this sutta. If there is no eye, if there is no tongue, ears, nose, and the body and mind, how could anything could happen? Like the Buddha asks us to break the chain of cycle of suffering from any point, if possible, so that the chain is broken and no proliferation happen right after. So as you said, yes, Paticcasamuppada is being explained very clearly here. Imasming sati idang hoti, imasupada idang upajiti, and so on, is being explained in numerous ways here, in a different way here. So that is why it is said that wise people should understand the Dhamma and compare the Dhamma in such a way for them to get the beautiful teaching like Paticcasamuppada here. There is no particular word Paticcasamuppada here, but it is being explained in a different manner. So when nobody can stop seeing pictures, hearing sounds, unless you attain parinirvana. You always hear sound. Even the Buddha heard sounds. The Buddha saw pictures. That is what not we are talking about when no eyes, no form, and so forth. You have no anusaya, no any sort of greed, hatred, and delusion arising when seeing happens, when hearing happens, because you saw the causal relationship between and among these things, and how those unwholesomenesses, unwholesome feelings, unwholesome perception arise in there. So that when that's why samadhi is being talked here. For Indriya Sangvara, you should have samadhi. For other practices, you should have samadhi in the first place. With samadhi, other qualities are entailed. Samadhi entail other qualities. Samadhi is inviting for other qualities to do that. So yes, in many ways, Paticcasamuppada is being taught, and by knowing this process in the mind, the wise people should, if they want to stop the cycle of proliferation, they should practice Indriya Sangvara based on Samadhi or Yoniso Manasikara. The meaning of practicing Indriya Sangvara means a lot for us. Whatever you see, you understand they are all, Patavya, Pote, Jovayo, or Skanda, or Ayatana. That's how you put seeing as seeing in details way. In other words, how do you practice seeing as seeing? You understand, oh, it's only a person who is made up of 4 elements. That is impermanent. It's not going to work. because it creates suffering and so on. The thing Daruchirya did in a short period of time could be done in lengthy way, and the same thing could happen to us as well.
Yes.
So that's how we need to put the Dhamma into practice. So it's very good thing that we come across Patisampada, we come across Dukkha Satya and Nirodha Satya both. In other words, the Four Noble Truths are being discussed in this sutta with the way senses work up to proliferation. You know, when Venerable Kacchayana talk about how mind proliferates and create a new anusaya or feed anusaya, it means talking about the first noble truth and the second noble truth. Most importantly, the second noble truth. And when Venerable Kacchayana explained how the cycle of proliferation is broken into, he talks about the third noble truth and also, most importantly, the fourth noble truth. So, Indriya Sangvara could be done when only one has begun the right practice in the noble training. So yes, Patisampada is being discussed, and depending on some people's skill, they would be able to catch the chain from feeling. For me, I definitely can feel I can do it better. According to my practice, one of the meditation I like very much. When I say I like, it's not mean craving, but I find an easy way of meditation with feeling, Vedananupassana, because I can feel it. I can stop creating desire, attachment, any sort of unwholesome process by seeing, feeling. If I'm because I have practiced it. Likewise, there would be people who understand the process with feeling, perception. Sometimes people are very good with upadana. When they notice something, it's gone to upadana, and they think about the adina or the consequences of upadana, and that would be the moment for them to do more on anything like Indriya Sangvara and so forth. So depending on personal skills, the way people move forward could be differ, but as a teaching, this is a wonderful, because we now know how dukkha arises, how problem arises in us, and we come to know how problem are stopped. So that is a very wonderful teaching. That's why the Buddha named this discourse as Madhupindika.
Thank you, Bhante. It's a very great explanation. Thank you.
You're welcome. So this is the first day of our sutta discussion after a few weeks. I hope I can continue discussion every week because it is required for us. And when good people, same-minded people come together and discuss Dhamma, it helps each other. And for people who perhaps listen to this kind of discourses, can look into details of it. I'm not saying that we discuss each word here in the discourse, but we managed to get the skeleton of the Dhamma of the discourse and discuss special point. But when you read the discourse from the beginning to the end with care and attention, you might pick up links from discourse to another discourse, from this statement to another statement of the Buddha, and you can bring nice explanation later on, right? So at least for your own benefit. So I encourage everyone to read these courses and find your own teacher there, because when the Buddha said Dhamma is your teacher after me, we have to rely on that. Of course, we have Kalyana Mittas, we have our teachers, we have your own teachers. Of course, we do respect them, but at the same time, we need to find the teacher in the Dharma. If no one advises us, we would be able to get advice from discourses, from the Dhamma itself. So that please read discourses and compare the Dhamma within and try to develop your training. That is very important. Some explanation are not being understood unless you practice meditation, unless you put your mind into relaxation. We would be able to practice jhana. We would be able to practice other important qualities in the Saddhamma, so that you better understand these terms. Otherwise, doubt might be in your mind, because you are trying to solve the Dhamma problems with only one tool, which doesn't make any sense, because the Buddha said that Dhamma is atakkavachara. Dhamma could not be brought up fully through argument, through comparison, through scholarly work. It is good when we practice Dhamma. Whatever that the Buddha said could be more clear when we practice meditation. When I say meditation, it's not only sitting on a cushion and looking at the breath, but it's more widespread, and the term meditation is so deep. Please understand that meditation is the Noble Eightfold Path. Practicing Noble Eightfold Path is the clear meditation. It includes the four Satipatthanas, 7 factors of enlightenment, and also other qualities of the 37 factors. So that's called meditation. So try to meditate in that sense. Try to meditate out of the cushion, when you drive, when you work, when you cook, when you have a shower, wherever you go, have that essence in mind. Investigative mind should be there always with right wisdom. That is called meditation according to Buddha's teaching. So since everything is done for the day, I just want to end today's session. And if anything left in this discourse, we can take them back in the next discussion, so that I think we did a nice job in taking this Sutta discussion. Thank you for your explanation. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for participation. May you all be able to stop proliferation within you and put the Dhamma into practice in a nice way and attain whatever the Buddha said in the name of Nirvana. With that thought in mind, I'm going to say, may you be well, happy, and peaceful. May your loved ones have a nice time in the summer. The weather is really good for you to go out and do all kinds of Dhamma work and social work and meritorious deed. May you have good health and peace of mind to do that kind of things. Further, may you be able to do Indriya Sangra as suggested in the discourse for the nice journey in the Dharma and attain Nirvana, complete Nirvana by the power of those blessings.
Sadhu,
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante.
You're welcome.